Hello, I'm going to show you something that I think is really exciting. Four planet patterns. These are very powerful when you're doing forecasting. In fact, I think they're even more powerful than the usual things we look at, which would be things like transiting planet to natal planet aspects. So we would say something like transiting Neptune is trine natal Venus today, or some aspect. And this is what we often talk about in modern Western astrology. That's important. There's something that I think is even more important, which is this four planet patterns. Back in the 1970s, I interviewed over 10,000 people, and one of the things I noticed about transits is that sometimes they just work. Wow. Like to the day, you'll see, I remember two people, the day that transiting Saturn was conjunct their sun, they made major decisions in their life. They took on new jobs, which had a lot of responsibility. You'll just see the timing is so precise. It's amazing. Other times, I just couldn't figure it out. It just didn't seem to work. When I started looking at these four planet patterns, wow, it filled in a lot of the puzzle. Missing pieces were just filled in. It's really awesome. So I want to show you what these four planet patterns are, and actually they're not so different from the usual transits we look at. I mean, theoretically, they're actually based on the same thing. So I'm going to take you through some, you might say, intermediate or even advanced ideas. So hopefully you can stay with me through this. I think it's very interesting so that you can fully appreciate and understand what's going on with the four planet patterns, and then how you find them, how you use them with your clients or for yourself or friends or whoever you want to look at. Now, I presented this information at the International Astrology Conference on March 18, 2018, in Belgrade, Serbia. This is a conference sponsored by the Kepler Institute. Their website is keplerunited.org. Let me just show you the website real quickly. Let me take you to their homepage. And there's a menu at the top, and if you go to the conferences item in this menu, they'll tell you about conferences in Belgrade and other places. And if you click on Belgrade, you'll get the information about their conference. Again, they have it about once a year. They do it every year, exactly once a year, typically in March. Okay, it was a great conference, and with the permission of Alexander Imzaragic, who's the head of the school, I'm able to present this to you today here. So let me show you what these four planet patterns are, and we're going to learn some of the astronomy and some of the details of what's really going on when we look at a transiting planet to natal planet aspect. So let's take the example of somebody who is older, 72 years old, because as a person gets older, you there's a discrepancy that starts to gets larger and larger the older person is. And I'll show you what this discrepancy is. So let's imagine there's a lady, let's call her Jane. She's 72 years old and her natal moon is at 18 Capricorn 46. Now on October 6th, 2018, transiting Pluto is at 18 Capricorn 46. So there's transiting Pluto on the outside, and there's natal moon on the inside. And we think of this as an overlay, like we're overlaying the two charts. And typically, what we often do as astrologers is we look at a list of aspects or a more graphic form, a timeline. Some people like to use biwheel. So to show you the biwheel, this is the popular musician Bruno Mars. This is his birth chart. And I can do a biwheel. I'm in the Series 2.0 software. I go up here to the multi-wheels and I select biwheel animation and adjust. And 2 clicks and there I am. I'm looking at the transiting planets on the outside and his natal chart on the inside. And there's Pluto at 21 degrees Capricorn 17. Now notice if I go back to our PowerPoint, I said that Pluto is at 18 degrees Capricorn 46, so it'll be, what is it, about 2.5 degrees earlier. It's going to retrograde from 21 Capricorn today. I'm making this video in April, at the end of April, April 25th. And over the next several months, Pluto will retrograde back to 18 degrees Capricorn. So I can move this forward 1 month at a time, and we can watch transiting Pluto move. So in late May, it's still at 21 Capricorn. In late June, the next month, it's now at 20.5 degrees Capricorn, and so on. So by late July, it's at late 19 degrees Capricorn. By late August, it's in early 19 degrees Capricorn. And by late September, actually on September 25th, Pluto is also at 18 Capricorn 46. And I can also see this in an ephemeris. So these are different tools that every professional astrologer should be familiar with. You should be familiar with biwheels. You should be familiar with using an ephemeris. So here's an ephemeris for September 2018, and I'll highlight Pluto. There's the Pluto column. Let me scroll down a little bit. I don't know if I can get the whole month or not. Well, I can get up to the 28th, which is all I need. So let me highlight this again. And there's Pluto. It might be a little difficult to read, especially with the highlighting. But on September 25th, here's the 25th, there's Pluto at 18 Capricorn 46. And if I scroll down, what happens is that Pluto is retrograde, goes to 18 Capricorn 45. I'll hit this right arrow to go to the next month of October. And then we see that Pluto turns direct. You see it goes from red to black, and it turns direct at 18 Capricorn 45, and it's back at 18 Capricorn 46 again from October 4th through October 9th. So you should be familiar with using the ephemeris. If you were not able to follow what I was just doing, I suggest that you replay that a few times, pause it, stop it, and get used to looking at an ephemeris. You need to be able to do that if you're going to be an astrologer, and also be familiar with the biwheel. So I'm just going over some basics of what it is we do when we look at transit-to-natal aspects. Now, here's the point I really want to get to. Is we think of this transit, of this biwheel, as being an overlay of the planets. But I have a question here at the bottom of the slide. Is that really an accurate statement? Is it really an accurate statement to say that transiting Pluto is in the same place in the sky as natal moon? Is that an accurate statement? What do you think? Because the moon, when Jane was born 72 years ago, is at 18 Capricorn 46. Pluto is at 18 Capricorn 46 on October 6, 2018, for example. So has Pluto returned to the same place in the sky? Well, I wouldn't be asking the question if I didn't have a point to make about this. My point is, it depends what you mean by same place in the sky. If you think of same place in the sky as having the same stars behind it, that's not true. Because what happens is the stars actually move 1 degree in 72 years. You may be familiar with this precession of the equinoxes. So it's not true that the stars, that Pluto is behind the same stars on October 6th as the moon was in 72 years ago, because the stars have moved 1 degree over those 72 years. That's called precession of the equinoxes. And actually, Pluto does reach the same point in the sky 2 months later on December 5th. So it takes 2 more months for Pluto to reach the same point in the sky. So some astrologers do this. It's called precessed transits. They want to see when the planets return to the same place in the sky, meaning behind the same stars. And if you do that, this aspect is not exact until 2 months later. So something to think about there. Should we be using precessed transits to bring the planets back to be in the same relationship to the stars in the sky? Or is it okay the way we do it? Okay, different people have different opinions about that. By the way, a precessed transit is the same thing you get if you do your chart in the sidereal zodiac, because sidereal means in relationship to the stars. Okay, well, it seems like a good idea, at least at first. Maybe we should use the fixed stars as a reference. But there's a problem with this idea. It's not so simple. The problem is the fixed stars are not fixed. They're not actually in a perfect same point in the sky all the time. They move very, very slowly. Now, over 72 years, they do not move very much. But it's an interesting thought that the sky is not really fixed, and I'll show you what I mean by this. You're all familiar with the Big Dipper. So I've got here in red the Big Dipper. Well, I got this from a website. Do I quote the website here? It doesn't look like I do. Okay, sorry about that, but this is taken from a website, obviously. Um, and here's the Big Dipper, 60,000 BC. Now, 20,000 years later, in the upper right, so this is 40,000 BC, this is what the Big Dipper looks like. And notice the shape has changed a little bit. There's also a star here that I've circled, uh, Theta Ursa Major, that in 60,000 BC is over here, and 20,000 years later, it's moved out of the rectangle completely. So some of the stars are moving relatively fast, some slower. And 20,000 BC, another 20,000 years later, look at it now looks like a dipper. You can see why we would call it the Big Dipper. It looks like a ladle or a big spoon because this is elongated. So you could see why in very ancient times they may not think of the Big Dipper as being a dipper. It doesn't look as much like a dipper, perhaps. Also notice the handle shape has changed. In 60,000 BC, in the upper left corner, it's closer to being straight. And then look what happens in 2000, today, around the year 2000. So today, it looks more like a dipper. You've got this kind of handle, bent handle. This is elongated, and it looks more like a big ladle kind of a thing. And we often call it the Big Dipper rather than the Great Bear. So this is just to show you that the stars are moving. The constellations are changing shapes. It's very, very slow, and the amount of movement is negligible over a person's life. But it raises the question of, should we really use the stars as a frame of reference when they are not rock solid? It's not a perfect backdrop. They are meandering around as well. So again, they're not moving a lot in your lifetime, but think about it. You're using something as a fixed reference, and it's not really fixed. It's moving itself. And how do we think about a sidereal zodiac and a relationship of planets to the stars when they are not fixed? So I don't know if that's a great approach to solving the problem. What I'm doing here is I'm presenting you with ideas. Everybody's going to come up with different opinions, and some people get very emotional about their opinions. But these are things to think about, and I am going to drive to an important conclusion soon that's going to lead us to this idea of these specific kinds of four-planet patterns. One more thing I want to mention about the movement of the stars. There are some stars that are moving enough that you do notice it in your lifetime. The fastest visible star is called Barnard's star, and it moves 1 degree every 350 years. So if somebody is 88 years old, Barnard's star has moved 1/4 of a degree, in other words, 15 minutes since they were born. So over their lifetime, there is some noticeable motion. So it's not like all of the stars are like, some people say, well, they only move like a minute every 2,000 years. Well, some move that slow, but some are moving much faster than that. Okay. And I personally do not think we can ignore the fact that the fixed stars are actually really not fixed. That's just my view of it. Okay. Now, here is another thought, is that when I was interviewing these many thousands of people in the 1970s and continuing to do charts after that, I found the transits worked. I didn't like it. I mean, they work. I mean, the stars have moved 1 degree over 72 years, but the timing, when it works, it really works. I mean, it can work to the day. So it was odd to me. This is just strange. So what are we actually doing when we're doing transits the way we normally do it in modern Western tropical astrology? Well, you can think of it like this, that On October 6th, when transiting Pluto is at 18 degrees 46 minutes of Capricorn, it has reached the same distance from 0 Aries of the tropical zodiac as the natal moon. If you think about it, it's obvious. That's what we mean. They're at the same degree and minute of the zodiac. It means they're the same distance from the 0 Aries point. So actually, what I think is going on is that it's a resonance. It's not that Pluto has returned to, quote, the same place in the sky in a broad sense, like here's the sky and we've overlaid the sky. What we're actually doing is looking at resonances to the beginning of the zodiac. So, I think that transits work because of resonance. And by resonance, I mean the same angular distance. So when two things reach the same angular distance, they resonate with each other. And, as you probably know, I do a form of astrology we call vibrational astrology, based on vibration. So it's not just transits, it's all kinds of things we look at as being vibrational in nature. So let me say that again. It might seem like a subtle point or a semantic issue, but sometimes these subtle points lead to big differences in how you're thinking about things. So I think of a transit not that Pluto has returned to the same place in the sky, as if there was one overall way to relate things, but I look at it as the Pluto 0 Aries angle today is the same as the Moon 0 Aries angle was when Jane was born. It's resonance. And this leads to a big thought, is that we can look at other resonances. And also, what if it's not a conjunction? What if transiting Pluto was at 18 Taurus 46 and is trine the natal moon? Well, then we can think of this as a kind of resonance to a 3 vibration. That Pluto is 1/3 of the circle from the moon. That angular distance is resonating by a difference of 1/3 of a circle. So what we have basically is not only if the planets are at the same point and resonating with the same angle, but you can have differences in angles that create vibrations. So you can think of it almost like a musical scale, that there are different vibrations happening depending on the distance. So in vibrational astrology, we think of the trine as like a 3 vibration. There's like 3 beats, which is the beat of harmony and smoothness. The trine is harmonious and smooth. Okay, now, so this is the big point I started to talk about. What about other resonances? For example, what if the sun-moon angle in the sky is the same as the sun-moon angle when you were born? So I think you've got the idea, but just to make this concrete, here's the birth chart of Bruno Mars. Here is his sun in 15 degrees Libra. Here's his moon at 7 degrees Leo. By the way, we don't have AA data for him, so when we get his birth certificate, maybe it'll be slightly different. But anyway, here's his moon at 7 Leo, his sun at 15 Libra. What if the angular distance between the sun and moon today is the same as it was when Bruno Mars was born? Would that create a resonance? Would this be a special day for Bruno Mars because the sun-moon angle in the sky is the same when he was born? And notice that would not be an aspect. It doesn't mean that the transiting sun or the transiting moon is trine or square his natal planet, just that the angular distance is the same. Would that be important? Well, it is very important. In fact, there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Eugene Yonash, who I think was in the 70s or so, worked with women who wanted to become pregnant or were pregnant, and he said that a woman is more likely to become pregnant when the sun-moon angle is the same as when it was when they were born. So if it's the right time of the month and the sun-moon angle in the sky is the same when they were born and they want to have a child, he would say try to make babies this day. when the sun-moon angle is the same as it was when you were born, and you're in the fertile part of your monthly cycle, this is the perfect time. He claimed that he was getting great results. He also claimed that his records were lost, and so we don't know. But anyway, um, there are astrologers, a good number of astrologers, myself included, who feel that this is very, very important. And it's actually the same thing, or at least I'm proposing that it's the same thing as what we're doing already. We're already looking at resonances. We're just looking at resonances to 0 Aries. So if we look at other resonances, wow, it opens up a huge door, tons of information, and things just start to make sense. So I cannot forecast for a client without seeing these resonances. They are the first thing that I look at to see when the transiting planet angles are the same as at birth. Very important. So an example would be, suppose that the Mars-Jupiter angle in the sky is the same today as when you were born. What does it mean? Because we can take any 2 planets. So if the Mars-Jupiter angle in the sky is the same as when you were born, it means today is a Mars-Jupiter day, and it's very simple to interpret. Mars is do something, Jupiter is big. It means that today, actually it'll last, within orb, probably a few weeks or so, you are going to be able to achieve big things. It's a time for advertising, for promotion, for developing the next level of whatever you're doing. You're able to get big things done. The doors just open when that happens. Okay, so these are the powerful 4-planet patterns. It's very simple. All it is when the 2 planets in the sky at the same angular distance as when you were born, those planets are resonating and things will happen. Dr. Jonas said a woman will get pregnant when the sun-moon angle in the sky, or has a higher probability of getting pregnant, of course, when the sun-moon angle in the sky is the same as when she was born. And I use this for any pairs of angles. And there are other astrologers who use this as well. Okay, now, next point. There are actually 3 kinds of resonances that can happen. And I'll describe this on this next slide. So here I have 3 little chart wheels to show the 3 kinds of resonances. And in the upper left is the one I just was describing, same phase angle. So let's see, I've got sun and moon in blue. Well, they're just 2 charts. Let's just think of the blue as a natal chart, and red could be the transits. So if the transiting sun is in the beginning of Aquarius, and late moon is in late Aquarius, and the natal sun is at the beginning of Gemini, and the natal moon is at the end of Gemini, suppose that angle is, say, it's 28 degrees, the natal sun-moon angle. When the transiting sun-moon angle is 28 degrees, you get that resonance. Now, on the upper right, you can have an out-of-phase alignment, where the sun-moon angle in the transits is still 28 degrees, but the moon is 28 degrees before the sun. So if the blue is the natal chart, with the natal sun at 0 Gemini and natal moon at, say, it's 28 Gemini, you could have the sun-moon angle in the sky, the red represents the transits, or in other words, the planets in the sky, is also 28 degrees, but it's out of phase. And I call this a composite alignment. So the out of phase angle, same angle but out of phase, is called a composite alignment because you'll end up with a conjunction or an opposition in the composite chart. Composite chart is you take the midpoint of the transiting sun and the natal sun, and the midpoint of the transiting moon and the natal moon. Those are called the composite sun and moon, and they will be conjunct or opposition. And a conjunct or opposition we often call an alignment. So that's the second kind of resonance, is the composite alignment, which is also, you can think of as same angle but out of phase. And the third kind of alignment is where it's a synastry thing, where what's happening, again, if we think of the red as the transits and the blue as the natal, the transiting sun to natal moon angle is the same as the transiting moon to natal sun. Okay, so you're getting like a double effect. Let me say that again. The transiting sun to natal moon angle is the same as the transiting moon to natal sun. So the synastry angles, synastry meaning aspects between the chart, are the same. They're also out of phase. These are the only three kinds of resonances that can occur between the same planets. You can play around and try to make a fourth one. You won't be able to do it. You'll always end up with one of these three. So that's just a fact of the geometry. There are three kinds of resonances. They're all very important, and the Kepler and the Sirius software will show these to you, and probably other programs as well, will show you when these resonances occur. The only reason I think we haven't been using them is that they're difficult to find. But just because something's difficult to find doesn't mean it's not important. We shouldn't reduce our astrology to be only things that we can find easily. That would be like saying I'm going to play piano, but I'm only going to play songs that are easy to play. Because if they're difficult to play, it's too much trouble, so they can't be very good songs. Well, no, they might be wonderful songs. So I don't think we should limit astrology to what is convenient for us to be able to do without computers or some other thing to help us. So these three kinds of resonances are all very, very powerful. And here are my transits. This is the timeline format that you can produce in the Kepler and the Sirius software for myself for the month of March. So you can see, for example, it says Sun Mercury equals Sun Mercury in the middle of March, and it was exact on March 16, March 13, and March 16, right at the time I gave the lecture. So when I was invited to speak, I looked at my transits. I pull up this listing to see what's going on. I saw the Sun Mercury. Sun Mercury is a perfect time to speak. I said, okay, the lecture is going to go well. I should probably consider going there. Now, and then the following weekend, they had it set up so I would speak in Istanbul, Turkey, at the school of Onur Doser. He has a wonderful school. So two fantastic schools in that part of the world. Alexander's school in Belgrade, Serbia, and Onur's school in Istanbul, Turkey. And they set up their conferences 1 week apart with the opportunity for me to speak at both. And I looked at the transits, and I would be speaking at Onur's conference around the 23rd of March, and there's transiting Sun conjunct my ascendant. So the two most powerful things I think that can occur and that I look at when I'm doing charts of people is I look at transits to the natal house cusps. If a transiting planet crosses a natal house cusp, it's huge. And I think so many astrologers agree with me about this. It's big. So transiting Sun conjunct your ascendant is like, it's better than your birthday. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So I figured, wow, transiting Sun conjunct my ascendant when I'm in Istanbul, it doesn't get any better than that. I'm going to really shine there. It's going to be exciting. And actually, I won an award there. I had no idea. I didn't even know they were giving awards. But I won an award. It was really a great honor because the school is such a wonderful school, and to be recognized by your peers. Anyway, we got so much done, so much excitement happened there, much more than I expected, although I did expect it to be good because of the Sun crossing my ascendant. So I use this. I use it for myself. I use it with clients. Anytime I want to know what's going on, I produce this listing. I use the Sirius software. It's in the Kepler software as well. Sirius is just a bigger, more powerful, more expensive version of Kepler. But you can do this in both of them, and you can get these listings. I think I've made other videos where I show how you select it. I'm already at a half hour, so I won't show that in this video, how you select. It's easy. And you get the most important things going on. And it works, and it's helpful. It made me decide to accept the invitation, and I'm glad I did. And exactly what I saw happening with the transits is what occurred, and that's typical. This really works. These two things, let me say it again. Resonances, same aspects, and when you look at this list, you'll see the resonance is this where it says equal. Sun Mercury equals Sun Mercury means the transiting Sun Mercury is the same as the natal Sun Mercury. Here's the composite alignment. Mercury opposition Pluto composite. That's the out of phase, which makes the composite alignment. That Mercury Pluto on the 9th of March. And the third one is the midpoint to midpoint, and we have an example of that. The Mars Saturn midpoint, transiting midpoint, opposition the natal Mars Saturn midpoint. That's the third type of alignment. If we go back, that's this one. This one here, the synastry one, will make a midpoint alignment. The natal Sun Moon midpoint will be conjunct or opposition the transiting Sun Moon midpoint. So those are the three kinds of alignments. The equals means same phase. The composite means it's an out of phase. And the midpoint, Mars Saturn midpoint, slash means midpoint, opposition the natal Mars Saturn midpoint, that is the one that emphasizes more of the synastry. All three of these are extremely important. They're all very, very important. If any of them occur, I know something big is happening, and I look at transits over the house cusps, the ascendant, the fourth house cusp, the seventh house cusp, and the midheaven. Those four angular house cusps. I think almost all astrologers agree with me about that. It just works. We all agree that planets crossing angular house cusps are just powerful. It's just from observation. And these alignments, these four planet patterns, are just as powerful. These are the biggies. These are the really big things that happen. And this is a little example of how I would use it in a practical sense. It affected my decision. I made a decision because of it. I don't know if I would have done it. I really don't know. It's hard to say if I would have accepted the invitations. But I did. When I looked at this, it made me feel like it's a good idea. Okay, and wow, it was really huge. A lot of things developed from that. So that's it. Oh, this was the slide I had when I gave the conference to see if we had time, if we could ask questions. But we can't interact on this video. So that's the end of this presentation. So I hope you found that interesting. I think I have some other videos that show how you select these things in the Kepler series software. It's really easy. I like the timeline. It's very visual to be able to see what's going on. So that's how I pick out the really big things that are happening. And these major four planet alignments, not so different from what we normally do. Okay, my friends, hope you found that interesting. God bless. Namaste.